Alright, so I wanted to go over this game from last night. Um, Talk about a couple things that aren't a lot of players normally don't think about as far as awareness of what's going on in the game. This is a very odd game, and it's one where the opponent eventually accused me of map hacking at the end of the game. I wanted to show or talk about how different kinds of awareness in the game can kind of give you an edge that seems almost like hacking to an uneducated opponent. So let's crank up the speed a little bit here. It's a ZVZ on Ruins of Endion. It's one of the new maps. It's got a very short air rush distance and a fairly long ground rush distance. The opponent opens up very strangely. This was, I want to say, this was a pull first opener. Sorry, this was a gas first opener. Gas, pull, and then hatch. And the opponent chooses to make a lot of lings early in the game and destroy these rocks outside of my base to kind of trap me in my base. So you see he's got a very early speed coming. He's already sending lings across. I thought this was going to be a more committed cheese than it actually was. So I made a very large amount of lings, more than I needed to. And then, because I had all these lings, I felt like I had to use them to attack. This ended up being a very poor engagement for me because he had speed so far ahead. And he ends up knocking the rocks down and trapping me into my base. So I decided to take advantage of the fact that he can't really attack me. I knock down the rocks to my fourth, take a third fairly quickly. He's breaking the rocks down into the gold base in between our bases. And I'm just macroing up. Roach Warren, Evo. I took a fast lair. Now he went Muta, which I don't think I ever got vision of the Spire, if I remember correctly. No, I was never able to get an Overlord back into his base after the initial scout. But I see the Mutas coming. Now, whenever an opponent goes for an air-heavy strategy like this, I think Neuro actually talked about this in one of his recent videos too. You want to think about what bases are closest to where the air units are coming out. So in this case it would be the main, and then the next most likely target is actually going to be the third. I think the natural would actually be closer for the mutas to get to, but usually a Zerg player will try to go for your third and deny it. So you want to spore up. I think the right thing to do on this map would be to spore up the main, then the third, and then the natural last. I'm making spores. I'm using queens to control the mutas. He doesn't have a whole lot of them, but he's making more. I'm sporing up the third, making additional queens. When you don't have very good dedicated anti-air, like Hydras, queens are a pretty good substitute. They only cost minerals, and they're never bad to have, really. Now this spore is kind of misplaced. It should have been placed on this side of my geyser here. That's a mistake I'll correct later. Now notice through all of this, I actually have a pretty commanding lead in every way. I'm 20 drones ahead. I have a better army. His only advantage is that he has map control because I'm blocked into my base and he's harassing with Mutalisk. So he's done a fair bit of damage as far as killing my army, but he hasn't actually hurt my economy. He hasn't really delayed my expansions or my tech. I'm taking a fourth now. I think he denies this for a minute, but I'm able to retake it pretty quickly. Queens are obviously quite a bit slower than Muta, so... And now I have Hydras out. Lots of Hydras, so I think I have 12. And he has 9 Mutas, so that's an appropriate amount of Hydras to deal with the amount of Mutas he has. And he's going for Lurker now. He's morphing a Lurker Den. He's only just now starting his Evo Chambers, so his upgrades are going to be quite behind mine. This is a little silly, too. Now, some things that could have been better. Having a creep tumor here to connect the main to my natural with creep would make it a lot easier to defend with the queens against the mutas. Because mutas are so fast, you really need every little edge you can get to chase them. But that's a minor mistake. The queens could be laying down creep more aggressively. Now, do I actually have... Yeah, I actually have vision of these rocks. Part of the reason the opponent accuses me of map hacking later in the game is because I'm able to hear or see his units attacking the destructible rocks. Now, if you have vision of the rocks, like if they happen to be within your current field of vision and they're within vision of your units, you can hear units attacking them even if you can't see the units attacking them. And this saves me a couple times. I'm able to chase his units off from here. Although actually I kind of had vision of them running over here anyway. Chase the Lings off again. And again, I can hear the units attacking the rocks. This is where I'm kind of expanding out onto the map, taking a 5th base. I decide to break the rocks down at my 3rd. I kill the mutas. And at some point pretty soon here, I think it's when I start to move out that I realize he's attacking. Yeah, this is where I hear his Lings attacking the rocks here. So even though I can't see any units attacking these rocks, I can hear them, which is an important cue. So I pull my army back. Now, another thing worth noting, I don't actually know that he has lurkers, but I made overseers anyway, because I thought to myself, well, the next sneaky thing for him to do would be to make lurkers. And of course he did. This engagement doesn't go very well for me. I was caught unprepared. My biles didn't do the damage they needed to do to the lurkers. But I kind of make up for it here by killing most of his lurkers. So let's go back to the start of that engagement. That looks about right. At this point, he has 7 lurkers. I have 3 Ravagers, 6 Roaches, and 4 Hydras. And I'm still about 20 drones ahead. I have 23 more Roaches in production, and 6 Ravagers. realize I can't defend the space right now. Or I don't think I can, so I just pull the drones away. It's better to keep the drones alive than to and lose the base than to keep the base and lose the drones. Now let's look back at the end of that engagement. He lost 5 lurkers. And again, keeping the drones alive, I can always retake this space if I need to, but replacing all those drones would be far more difficult. And then, because he is so far behind economically, he just can't produce fast enough to defend. And I'm able to just walk over him at this point. Of course, typical bad manner. So, the lesson I think worth keeping in mind from this game is to be aware not just of what you can see, but what you can hear in the game. And also sensible preparations to take, even if you don't have solid information of what your opponent is doing. It's fairly common for Zergs to go lurkers on this map in ZVZ, so having the overseers ready before you engage is almost always going to be a good decision. Being aware of where the opponent can sneak into your base is good, and having vision of those areas is good. So long as you have vision of the rocks themselves, you'll be able to hear units attacking them even if you can't see them. GG.